Hi, and welcome to the Red Team Draft Podcast. I'm your host, Alex West. You can follow me on Twitter at AlexWestNBA, and I'm joined today by just one single solitary member of the group. It's Mr. Josh Earl. Josh, what's up, my man?
Not much. Excited to just run the pick and roll with you tonight on a very important topic. We're addressing a very, very important topic. I'm a little sad Connor and Eustachio can't be here for it. But this is a topic so important that we couldn't wait for them to return.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, listen, we're going to miss them, but we've cut the dead weight now. We've cut the dead weight, and it's time to really get into the meat and potatoes of what this podcast is about, because today we are going to talk about Space Jam 2.
Yes.
Let that sink in for a second. We're going to talk about Space Jam 2. And in seriousness, we are missing both those guys. We wish they were here. Obviously, it is that time of the year where Connor has to stop being a basketball prodigy and be a little bit of a school prodigy. Eustachio flying across the country. So we missed both of those guys. So we decided we're going to take a little bit of a lighter topic today. And we have actually done pages and pages to talk about Space Jam 2. So let's start with what we know, Josh. Give us the rundown on what we know about Space Jam 2.
So what we know about Space Jam 2 is that it'll star LeBron James.
Okay.
It'll be directed by Terrence Nance.
Okay. And
it's produced by Ryan Coogler. And that's about it. That's all that's been leaked. And, of course, there'll be Looney Tunes. The guy who voices Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, he's listed on the IMDb page for Space Jam 2. Beyond that, we have no idea what's going to go on with this movie. Is it going to be kind of a retread of the first movie with similar type of circumstances? Or are they going to try something new? Is this going to be as deliriously bad good as the first one? Is it going to be just regular good? Or is it just going to be regular bad?
I mean, I don't. First of all, let's take that question apart, because I don't think there's any way they can capture Space Jam exists in this perfect moment in time where we weren't quite cynical enough to attack it, and I guess our generation, we were young when it came out, but it existed in this perfect moment in time that was pre the cynicism that the 2000s brought to us. And so it just was, and everybody knew it was bad, but it was a kid's movie and it had Michael Jordan in it. And so naturally it was amazing in its own right. But I don't think that because we've aged as a society, because we've come from a much more cynical place, I don't think that you can actually capture the magic of Space Jam 1 in Space Jam 2, which leads itself to like a couple of questions. And I think the first one, Josh, is pretty simple. It's like, how do you attack this? Do you go with the same kind of alien stealing basketball talent to beat the Michael Jordan proxy and LeBron James? Is this in response to what happened in the first game? Is this the first? Do they decide they want a series? Do they come back? What is the deal here?
Yeah. Questions that are so important to ponder.
I mean, I really think so.
And yet we the answers elude us.
Well, I guess there's only one thing to do, and that's dive into it and talk about it.
Yes, okay. Exactly.
So before we get into the obvious question, and the obvious question everybody knows is who is going to make up the MonStars, okay? Clearly. We're getting there. Believe me, we have honestly way too much research done on that and discussion. But before we get into that, I think, Josh, we need to ask a couple of questions. And the first one is, are we going to adopt the same 4 big man, 1 guard lineup from the first movie? You had Sean Bradley, Patrick Ewing, Larry Johnson, Charles Barkley, and Muggsy Bogues made up the original team, which was
you don't win with jump shooting.
Yeah, an awful.
Charles Barkley, you don't win with jump shooting. The MonStars know this fact.
The MonStars have learned in their 20 years while waiting this out. I think they've learned about floor spacing, and that's a big thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, personally, I'm going to say we don't follow that. Like, I say we just go, whoever jumps in, whoever grips us, that's who we go with.
Yeah, and I feel that the MonStars would have learned at least a little bit from the previous loss, and that they may have a slightly better understanding of basketball in general, and therefore might look for more skill as opposed to just like sheer size plus Muggsy, who is awesome, my favorite basketball player of all time. Love him. It'll be hard to replace him. So yeah, I think we can boot the four bigs, one guard lineup.
Okay, see, because that's important to me because it opens up a new world. I mean, obviously, as we looked into this, we started with that formula and we were going to replicate it. But the more we got into it, I'm trying to find what the guy's name was, the owner, like the space alien owner. But apparently he's learned. I can't find his name, but whatever it is, he's learned. He's not like James Dolan. He has evolved. He's come to a greater understanding of the basketball world. And now he's going to take a better team. But before we get into who his team's going to be, obviously LeBron makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's a producer now. He's a mogul. He's all of these things. Is he the only choice? I mean, obviously he is the choice, but are there other choices to replace him?
Yeah, there are a couple of guys.
Kids or
yeah, I think there were other candidates that maybe just don't have the drawing power, the pull power, business-wise of LeBron. But I think Steph would have been fantastic, and I think Blake Griffin might have the best comedic timing, and just I think Blake would excel in a comedic sequel to Space Jam. So I get that LeBron is the obvious guy here, and I don't, fault it because LeBron was really funny in Trainwreck, and LeBron's clearly a very talented individual. And obviously, if you were going to go with the kind of duplication of the MJ role, LeBron's the clear guy for that. And I didn't mention another obvious candidate, Kevin Durant, because Thunderstruck. Yeah. So, while I wish, personally, I think Blake would have been the best in this role. He's just so darn funny that I think he would have crushed it. But I'm cool with LeBron.
Okay. The one name that I would throw on that list is Kyrie Irving. Kyrie seems to have this had it been 2 years ago, I would have said Isaiah Thomas, but I think kind of Kyrie has taken up the mantle of the player that young kids love. They want to buy shoes. They kind of see him as a smaller guy in the league. I think Isaiah had a lot of that going for him the year that he was an MVP candidate. But I think that Kyrie has taken up a lot of the mantle of the small player who still does a lot for kids, and the kids kind of look up to him. So that would be the only other person I would throw into that. But yeah, I mean, when it comes right down to it, LeBron is fronting the money to make the movie happen. So if he wants to be the star, then he gets to be the star. And I guess that moves us into, we have LeBron. He is the central figure of the Toon Squad. But who would the aliens steal? And we have made a pretty substantial list, and I think we should do it like this. I think we should do it by positional breakdown. Just talk about our list and then kind of narrow it down, because we've each made individual lists as who we want, but going through the candidates has been pretty fun. So I'll start with our guards. On our list, we have Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, Diana Taurasi, and Sue Bird.
Woot woot! Point guard.
I think there's a lot of interesting choices there, and including some of the WNBA players. Obviously, the WNBA has risen in popularity, and I think it has become one of the most watchable products out there, which is something that I personally would not have said 10 years ago. And players like Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi are sort of at the epicenter of that. And I think that from a marketing standpoint, capitalizing on something like that would be is actually really important for this film. And I know that's maybe a little bit too serious to be on the topic, but the truth is when you do something like this, I do think you want to capitalize on your young female audience.
Yes.
And then B, just picking up some marketing for the WNBA.
Yeah. And LeBron and the NBA players are all very big fans of WNBA players and WNBA teams. And, you mentioned like having somebody for young girls to like relate to and look up to. And in the first Space Jam, this is one of those things with like cynical eyes as an older person. You rewatch it and you're like, wow, they really sexualized a female bunny a lot. She's like the only female character in the entire movie. That should change. Like it's 2018. Film will come out probably 2019. Times have changed. The WNBA is great. Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird are fantastic Hall of Fame level players. Sue Bird's my second favorite point guard of all time. And
behind
so,
Muggsy?
Yes, behind Muggsy.
Okay,
and that's mostly because I was 5'3" until freshman year of high school. So, yeah. But I think, and it is very serious for a Space Jam 2 discussion, but I think it's almost essential to have quality female characters in this movie as representatives for young female fans, and as representatives for young male fans too. And I think it would be a great marketing opportunity as well for the WNBA.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right, Josh. You have these young women and young men who are starting to take on this product, who's starting to watch it a lot more. And I think what you have in this guard section, particularly with Taurasi and Bird, is two of the older players who have kind of ushered in this era of prominence for the WNBA. And I think that, yeah, I mean, you're obviously, you want to talk about the Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, those kinds of guys. But these guys, these two players in particular, Taurasi and Bird, are legends in their field. And I think that you probably want at least one of them on the team, maybe both. But I want to flip over and talk about the NBA guys for a second, because we have a really interesting list here. We've got Russell Westbrook, obviously hyper athletic, explosve, just a player who
MonStar already.
Exactly, basically a monster already. You've got Chris Paul, who kind of has a stodgy old man, stomp around, huffy attitude.
And LeBron's best friend within NBA circles.
True. You also have James Harden, a fantastic player in his own right. Obviously a good scorer, good distributor, but also has a really big beard.
Yes, which would be can you imagine a MonStar with just a big bushy beard? Like that was one of the things, the MonStars in the first Space Jam, that they, outside of Muggsy, Sean Bradley, and Charles Barkley's MonStars, like they just mostly look tall and big. Imagine a MonStar that has very discernible features that equate to the player that they are tied to. And I think it'd just be fun visually in a cartoon sense of seeing a MonStar with a big old Harden-like beard.
And then, of course, the last player on that list you cannot forget, the last two, you have Steph Curry, LeBron's nemesis for the past 4 or 5 years, a player who seemed to got the better of him quite a few times. And then you have Kyrie Irving, a player who left the graces of LeBron James to go play somewhere else. So,
he has experience in movies.
True.
Through the Uncle Drew movie, which he headlined. So from a behind-the-scenes Hollywood sense of things, Kyrie makes a lot of sense too, given his experience with the Uncle Drew commercials in the movie. And he does have a tie to LeBron. And it would, narratively speaking, be fascinating for the MonStars to have to take the talent of this guy that in some essence spurned LeBron. That could be really interesting to narratively speaking.
Okay. This is a tough field. I mean, I'm looking at the position groups. This is a pretty tough position group. I was going to say it was the toughest, but then I started looking at the bigs. So
the bigs is going to be the toughest one, I think.
It's tough. And we've decided on but we're not going to reveal that. We're going to keep you in suspense as listeners. Let's move on and talk about the wings. We made an interesting list to take a look at, and the names on our list are Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, and Maya Moore.
Yes.
So I think there's probably the best place to start is with Giannis because, like you said, Giannis, he's kind of a cartoon character as well. He's like Stretch Armstrong. So he just seems naturally to be the first guy you want when you have this discussion.
Yeah, and I mean, in MVP consideration this season with how the Bucks are playing and how he's playing, him and Kawhi are probably the two biggest name players in the East now that LeBron's in LA. Plus, Giannis just seems like such a lovely person. I remember him as a rookie in his first few seasons and stuff, watching interviews of him, and I'd turn to my wife and be like, I just want to play board games with the guy. Like, he seems so delightful. Like, you just invite him over for Thanksgiving or Christmas or something, and you just have a ball.
All right. But does that count as a negative? Because to me, having this lovely personality counts you out as being a really good villain for the movie.
That's true. Well, then let's look at some of the other wing candidates then.
Okay.
Luka. It might be a little too early to throw Luka into something like this. Although obviously Luka's thrived in everything he's been thrown in so far, and I have no doubt that he would succeed. Luka would be a lot of fun and would be another great marketing thing for the NBA. Like, our younger stars are also being in these Hollywood movies and stuff. But personally, I don't know. Luke is a little too inexperienced at this moment for me to put him in a Space Jam movie.
So I'm a big Luka guy. He plays ball the right way. I was very impressed with him last year. I can remain very impressed with him the more I see. I was the one who put Luka on this list, and let me tell you why. I think that Luka is destined for stardom, and I don't think there's ever a moment that's too early to embrace his. Now, I'm with you. It's probably a little bit too soon to be on this list over some of these other guys, but I wanted to get him on there because I just want to be prepped for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years because what Luka has done in Dallas has been downright impressive. He's a guy who plays well beyond his 19 years. I love the way he plays. He has probably the second best step back in the game to James Harden. The dude just hits daggers. He went on an 11-0 run. I know that people are kind of down on I know that there was an upswing on Luka, and now there's a downswing on people being up on Luka, but he's just been so darn fun to watch, and I wanted to put him on there because I think he's just destined for stardom.
I think we both would have him as a lock in Space Jam 3.
Sure. Okay.
Like I think we can pencil him in for Space Jam 3. So in 2 years when we have a follow-up podcast for news of Space Jam 3, Luka will be on our list as a lock.
A little bit too soon for him now. But that brings us to our next one. This guy has kind of turned into a villain just in real life, and that's Kevin Durant. Obviously, we all know the Warriors story, moving. We know the Blog Boys story. We know the fake Twitter account story. I also want to kick in there that I think it'd be really funny to have a really long, skinny, Stretch Armstrong kind of cartoon character. So, I don't feel like I have to make too much of a Kevin Durant case right here.
No, and I agree. And I think narratively, it would hit a lot of check marks, too, for casual fans who might be the same types of fans that would go see Space Jam 2, is if Kevin Durant is a villain, a lot of people will embrace that. if Kevin Durant has a scene where he loses his powers that isn't in Thunderstruck, I think people will embrace that. So I get it. And obviously Kevin Durant's a fantastic future Hall of Fame player, a former MVP, one of the very best players alive at this moment. I think some of the same elements that might make this work a lot from like a marketing standpoint also might be a drawback for including Kevin, though, is, do we really, for Kevin's sake, do we really want to steer into the like villain and the imagine what would happen if he loses his talent to a MonStar and the Twitter stuff. Like, I think it might be a little too real. Yeah. And I know we were talking about serious stuff with WNBA, and we've talked about real stuff with Space Jam 2 already, but like that might be a little too real in my opinion, especially when you factor in that KD might leave this offseason. Yeah. I think it's just enough, and I completely agree with you. Having a Stretch Armstrong like MonStar would be fantastic, but there are other candidates too that could fill that role.
For sure. And I think you're totally right. Obviously this warrants a longer discussion, not on Space Jam 3, but just sort of on Kevin Durant, the person. But it's like you said, like he's a dude who's just been this sort of enigma in that he wants this, he's in pursuit of this perfect basketball situation, this basketball dream or whatever. He keeps going on Bill Simmons' podcast and talking about it. But at the same time, he left Oklahoma City. That left a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth. He went to Golden State. That left a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth. Then the Twitter stuff. Then all of these things that keep piling on to one another. It might be steering into the skid too much. Now, listen. Once I joined the Warriors, I would have grown a Hulk Hogan Fu Manchu and embraced the role as the villain.
I would have loved that. That would have been awesome.
That's what I would have done. I said that when LeBron moved to Miami. It was like, why don't you just embrace the role as the vivillain and just trash talk every city? Yeah. But, that's just me. So maybe you're right, which brings us to, I want to talk about Maya Moore before we talk about probably our favorite candidate in the wings. Maya Moore is fantastic.
So good.
I think she's won like 12,000 games in her between her 4 years at UConn and her career for the Minnesota Lynx. I think she's won like 12,000 games.
Yeah, her personal theme song is that "All I Do Is Win."
Yeah,
she's insanely good. Those of you who don't watch the WNBA, watching Maya Moore is a joy. She can do a little bit of everything, and she's not one of those players where like they just dabble in a little bit of everything. She's legitimately good at everything. Yeah. She's definitely one of the players to watch in the WNBA, and I would definitely suggest catching her with the Minnesota Lynx in the next WNBA season.
One of the great players in the WNBA. I mean, her team had a lot of success this year. Her team has had a lot of success every single year, and I think that warrants
four championships.
Yeah. Yep. I think it warrants inclusion. Somebody who's won that much, even if she doesn't make the final list, you have to put her on this list. Yes. But I think the most interesting of all the wings is none other than Kawhi Leonard. Yes. We have learned a lot about Kawhi since the fallout from the Spurs situation. I don't feel like I need to make the case for you. He has a hilarious, awkward laugh. He has enormous, cartoonish hands.
Yes, already.
And when he breaks out that on the movie, it's going to be amazing.
Especially if you so this has always been my mic drop moment in our document sheet, because I noted that imagine a MonStar, like we were saying, like a super stretchy looking MonStar with just freakishly cartoonishly large hands, like more so than like what you would imagine for cartoonishly large hands. Like Kawhi could palm
the world.
The Charles Barkley MonStar from the first.
Right. Yeah.
With the dreads, and imagine that insanely delightful, awkward laugh with a tinge of evil. Like that right there, that has cemented, like, I'm just going to say it, Kawhi is a lock in my 5 MonStars, simply for the idea of seeing a gigantic MonStar with huge hands laugh like that.
Yeah.
It would be a key moment in Space Jam 2 that everyone would love. Plus, Kawhi and his uncle have been trying to get Kawhi
this is
a little
true.
more pub, a little more kind of sponsorship type attention. And we all know that Kawhi's got a very kind of robotic, dry personality in his interactions with the media and stuff. Being in Space Jam 2 and kind of poking fun at himself, I think could help open the floodgates for a lot of people viewing Kawhi in a different light.
Yeah, that's really good. I actually hadn't considered that. I was just considering the laugh more than anything else.
That laugh is genius.
But yeah, on the more serious side, it definitely could help him improve his image of being a robot. That was my last point on Kawhi, was like, if you had 3 or 4 MonStars and a robot, and the Kawhi was a robot, because it seems so fitting for what he is.
Yeah, that would work well too. Just a robot with giant freaking hands and an evil, awkward laugh. Yeah.
I want to hear like the robot version of that laugh. Anyway, moving on, we have an extensive list, and I'm actually
the bigs were just
I'm going to cut
list was so hard
as we go, because there's just so many. You have some good ones, some honorable mentions, but getting right into the meat of it. Starting with our WNBA players, you have Brianna Stewart, you got Candace Parker, you got Brittany Griner. Everybody knows these names, particularly Griner. Oh yeah, yep. Those were our 4 WNBA, and everybody knows Candace Parker, what she's brought to the game. Brittany Griner has this big sort of menacing personality.
Yes.
All of those,
Brianna Stewart's the reigning MVP.
Right. It kind of falls into that Maya Moore category. And then for the gentlemen, the honorable mentions, you got Kristaps Porzingis, because come on, I mean,
he looks like a MonStar already. Yeah,
he's basically already a MonStar. You've got Nikola Jokic, because maybe the MonStars want to move the ball and they need modern day Bill Walton to help them.
Yeah.
You got Rudy Gobert. Gobert, also another physical presence that would be,
and a MonStar with like a French accent would be kind of fun.
Yep. Which brings us to the top of the list, and there are 4 guys I see. There are 5 guys. I got to include one more because I actually just made a change while we were talking to my final list.
Okay.
The 5 bigs that I think warrant discussion in this are, and for different reasons, you have Anthony Davis.
Yep.
Okay, that's a given. Joel Embiid, Blake Griffin, Boban Marjanovic, and Draymond Green. So those are the 5. I mean, starting with Anthony Davis, he's got a unibrow, okay?
Yeah. We were talking about super, like, Stretch Armstrong-y MonStar. And we were talking about, like, the Harden beard, Kawhi hands.
Right.
Like, Anthony Davis is the guy that I think is a sure lock for Space Jam 2. 1, he's now represented by Clutch. Second, he's an MVP candidate.
Yep.
Third, it's the unibrow practically makes it already. Like a MonStar with a unibrow and with those like gangly pterodactyl arms, everyone would know instantaneously who it is. Anthony Davis is another guy kind of like Kawhi that hasn't really had a whole lot of like media stuff, no real movie roles that are big yet, no seriously large national level commercials that really hit the zeitgeist. And I think Anthony Davis would just be awesome in this. And I would love to see a MonStar with a unibrow. That would just be great.
I think, if nothing else, that's the marketing angle of this. Is have he's got the thick unibrow, and you're going to sell a lot of toys and shirts and all that kind of stuff. He's going to be a favorite. Another good one, Joel Embiid, we all know Embiid. He's got this huge personality. He's
Yes.
fantastic. He's a social media celebrity, all that stuff. So obviously that's a great one. Blake Griffin has shown himself to be quite funny.
Yes.
He's done a lot of stand-up. He's got acting chops.
Yes.
So I think without you have to go really hard to include Blake Griffin on this. And this is kind of where we started with this whole thing, is like, where do you put Blake Griffin in this group? He's kind of just got to be there, right?
Yeah. As you know, I've waffled a lot on the fifth person in my 5 choices, and Blake's been in and out constantly. Personally, I love Blake. I think he's so good at comedy that, like, I would, if he were to be in the movie, I think he should fill the Barkley role from the first one, the one where he's kind of the main one of the players that get their talents taken from the MonStars that we follow. So he kind of has his own subplot. Out of all the players in our list of candidates, I think Blake's by far the best option for that kind of secondary role under LeBron in a Space Jam movie.
For sure. Totally agree with you. I think one that we have struggled with, and ultimately I think both of us ended up leaving him off our list, is
Although it hurts.
Is Boban.
I love Boban so much. Boban, you are amazing.
He's basically a MonStar already. He's enormous. He is delightful.
Yes.
And ultimately, Josh, I got to break it to you, his delightfulness, his friendship with Tobias Harris.
Oh, I love Toby and Toby.
His approachability, all of these things are what left him off my list. Was because he just seemed too fun.
Part of the reason, I'm going to be completely honest, the reason he didn't make my list, although he's one of my top honorable mentions, the reason he didn't make my list is because I don't believe you could accurately depict a scene where he's lost his talent.
Yeah, he's just too
good.
He's too good.
Like you can't pretend like he can't just dunk on his tippy toes. Like you can't.
Yeah, because he can just lean into a dunk.
Yeah.
So you can't take it away from him. He's too delightful. It just can't be done. Which brings us to the last guy on the big list. And I don't think this one would actually work in the movie, but it's one of my personal favorites, and that's Draymond Green. I think to be a MonStar, you have to have a nasty streak. I think that's a very important part. We all know what Draymond's nasty streak is, to the point where it may have cost them the 2015 title.
Yes.
2015, 2016. All the years run together now. They've been winning so many titles. But I don't think that would work in real life because I don't think he and LeBron get along. But
why would you suggest that?
I do think that if I were choosing my dream lineup, that Draymond would probably be in there, because you got to have this just really nasty MonStar who's ready to go to war.
So I completely agree on that point. And like if this was made earlier, Kevin Garnett would have been perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think there are a couple of issues with Draymond. One, it's going to be a PG movie. So the type of talking that Draymond's MonStar would do during the court, probably not something they could get away with. 2, he punched LeBron in the nuts. And I'm pretty sure, like, I know him and LeBron are fairly cool still, but like, we ran this by a couple of our colleagues and friends, and I mentioned that, like, I don't know if you want a ball puncher in a kids movie. What lesson is that sending? And there was some people who were very adamant that that's actually exactly why he should be in the movie. As an uncle of 3 kids and soon to be 4, I'm becoming more wary of my when I ingest media. Like, how would my nieces and my nephew, how would they like bring this info in, and how would they internalize it? And like, my nephew gets excited when there's anything that kind of is like slappy, and then he starts slapping everything. So like, being an uncle and being kind of at crotch slap or punch height, at his age as he is now, I don't feel that comfortable with him seeing a Space Jam 2 with Draymond as a MonStar punching cartoon balls, because that will literally hurt me in the future.
I love Draymond more than anything in the world. He might be my favorite NBA player right now. It's him. I have a very strange list that involves him and Marcus Smart. I like players that just get after it. I like players who are nasty. I like players with a nasty streak. So it's, I get what you're saying, and you're not wrong. But like my MonStar lineup's going to be more nasty than yours is. And when we're going into that, when you're going to battle against LeBron James and Bugs Bunny, I want some dudes who are ready to get it. So I want Draymond on my team. Now, before we get to the big reveal, it's really important. There are 3 roles in the movie that need to be talked about just quickly. Mm-hmm. One of them being Larry Bird. Larry Bird obviously plays golf with MJ in the movie. And when MJ gets pulled into the hole, who were some of your favorites to fill the Larry Bird role? Yeah,
so I'll list some of the top candidates that we listed out. Personally, I think Dirk Nowitzki would be awesome in that role.
He would.
Michael Jordan's the likely one. If they do actually replicate this specific role, Michael Jordan's almost guaranteed to get that. You had the great suggestion of Ray Allen as Jesus Shuttlesworth.
That's true, and that's going to come back later. That's a theme.
Which I really love. Obviously, Wade and CP3 would make sense.
I think that's who's going to get it. If I had to put
one of those guys, I think,
No, I think it's going to be both of them. I think it's going to be Wade and CP3.
Yeah. There are 2 other ones that I think, personally, I just want to mention at least. Tim Duncan would be delightful.
That'd be good.
Because everybody loves Timmy. And then Diana Taurasi being like what many people consider the WNBA GOAT.
The elder statesman.
To have a golfing type thing or some sort of friendly competition with LeBron, I think would really work. She's probably my favorite for that particular role, although I think, MJ, Wade, CP3 are the most likely ones. And I got to give you so much credit for the Jesus Shuttlesworth shout out. It'll never happen, but I'd love that.
Mine is Larry Bird. Larry Bird gets Larry Bird's role. Nobody takes Larry Bird's role. So the next role is Bill Murray. Bill Murray has an assist, I believe. I believe he registers.
Yes, he does.
We went through a couple of these, and I really like some of these.
There's such a great one. Yeah.
Obviously, Bill Murray. I mean, you got to start there. Bill Murray's still live and breathing and hilarious. But when you come to the more modern day, you have Tiffany Haddish, Kevin Hart, Conan O'Brien. Probably my personal favorite is The Rock.
That would be fun,
and then I threw in Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes as Billy Hoyle and Sid from White Men Can't Jump.
I'm loving the meta-ness. Like just Jesus Shuttlesworth and an appearance by Billy Hoyle and Sidney Dean. And I just have to give Connor a shout out here because we were kind of talking about this in one of our Slacks, and I mentioned like Billy Hoyle and Sidney Dean, and Connor was kind of like, "What?" And I was like, "Don't worry, you were in diapers at the time, if even alive."
He's making fun of us on Slack now because he has put a picture of himself driving a big wheel as his Slack profile so that he can talk about what he thought about Steph Curry when he was 8 years old. So but he's making fun of our age now. But and then the last one is the Wayne Knight role. The list kind of the same. We had a few. Mitch Liebenoff said Josh Gad.
Which I love that one. That's
Scott Levine said said Brian Windhorst, Jack Black, Tiffany Haddish, Kevin Hart. So a lot of good roles to fill these secondary roles. But Josh, it's time to get down to brass tacks, man. Give me your final 5.
All right. So this was very, very difficult for me. So I'll start with the honorable mentions. First off, Boban. I'm not joking, and I've written this in our document. Alex can vouch for me on this.
Like a bunch
I typed, it physically hurts me to leave him off. I love Boban. I actually left Blake off. I love Blake, but given how I structured my choices, Blake would have been somewhat redundant. And I think for reasons that I'll enumerate in a little bit, like I think the choices that bumped him make sense. Steph, Giannis, KD, and Westbrook. in part simply because I love to see a Westbrook he's bad now scene, because as somebody from the Pacific Northwest, I do not like the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I still kind of have a bone to pick with them. So my finalist, my 5, we'll start off with the locks. Kawhi, that evil, awkward laugh and gigantic. Like, it's got to be in the movie. It's like that Key and Peele sketch about Gremlins 2. It's in the movie.
Yeah.
Same thing with Anthony Davis. Super gangly MonStar with a thick unibrow. He's an MVP candidate. He's a lock. James Harden. Once again, you can sense a theme that I kind of thought very visually about the MonStars. I think James Harden, like a MonStar with a big old bushy beard, is something we haven't really seen yet. And you'd have the beard, the unibrow, the hands, and the laugh. Like that would be a good, like you could do good, fun marketing stuff with that. Also, Harden's the reigning MVP. So, and then that gets to the final 2, which I chose Sue Bird and Breanna Stewart for a couple of reasons. One, I believe it's very important that we have female representation in this movie in 2018, 2019. 2, they are part of the reigning WNBA champs. Shout out to Seattle Storm. I've been to some of their games. It's a fantastic environment. Seattle loves basketball. And I also think having 2 prominent players from Seattle would also maybe further ignite the flames of get a Sonics team back to Seattle. But beyond that, Breanna Stewart's the reigning WNBA champ and MVP. She's kind of like Maya Moore in that all she does is win. She was Rookie of the Year. She's amazing. Easily one of the very, very best female basketball players alive right now. And then Sue Bird. She's the point god. Like, she is a 3-time WNBA champ. She's a lock for the Hall of Fame. It was tough to leave Taurasi off, but personally, I'm much more of a passing type person than a scoring type person. And so, like, the first jersey that I bought my niece was actually a Sue Bird jersey, because I think she's exactly the perfect role model for young girls to look up to and for young boys to look up to. And I'm still currently on the lookout for a Sue Bird jersey that fits me. So that's my 5. Sue Bird, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Breanna Stewart, and Anthony Davis.
I do want to dock you some points for caping so hard for the return of Seattle basketball. I'm going to allow it.
How dare you, sir?
I'm going to allow it. But just so you know, I'm on to you. My finalists, this is not what I think the movie will be in any imaginable capacity. This is just who I want to see. We have 2 of the same, Anthony Davis and Kawhi. We've been through that. My point guard is Russell Westbrook, because I think he has a villain mentality.
Yes.
He would probably be the MonStar that took over and took 40 shots in the game. I don't love that part, but what are you going to do?
He'd also break the backboard.
Yeah, he's going to rip the backboard down. He's going to dunk with his feet, maybe do a backflip or something. So got all that stuff. But he is definitely going to shoot the MonStars out of the game. Then you have Blake. I think that Blake is too good to leave out of this rotation. He's super funny. He's going to be really enjoyable as a human character and also as a MonStar. Also can maybe run it back a little bit and to Blake's gone by when he was hyper athletic. Can jump out of the gym, jumped over a Kia, that kind of thing. And then the last one is obviously Draymond for me. It was between him and Boban, and I just couldn't put Boban in because he was too nice. He was too delightful. My honorable mentions, similar to yours, I had Kyrie and Steph. I had Giannis. I had Joel Embiid. I had KD. And then for the and then Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi also on my honorable mentions list. But there you have it, folks. The most important basketball discussion you're going to hear this week
seriously
has been litigated right here in front of your eyes. I think the defense rests. I don't really think there's much more to be said on the subject.
That said, we would love to hear your arguments. So hit up at Red Team Scouting on Twitter. Hit up any of us, me, Alex, Connor, Eustachio on Twitter, or however you happen to have our contact information. Hit us up and let us know what you think about the Space Jam 2 discussion. Did we leave off? Were we super wrong in our 5? Did we leave out an obvious person? Did we fail to mention a candidate that would have been superb? Let's get some engagement on this. I'd love to hear what other people want to see in Space Jam 2. And Alex has the Twitter handles for all of us to continue this conversation.
It's true. Follow Josh at 2RedJEarl. Follow me at AlexWestNBA. Follow Red Team Scouting at Red Team Scouting. Eustachio is EVRR1022. Connor is at HarConnor. Don't forget to follow the 94. It is the 94_. And we're going to be back next week with a full cast and maybe with a serious subject, depending on how we're feeling. But before we go, Josh, do you have anything you need to plug? I got to get a couple plugs in for us as a group, but do you have anything that needs to be said?
The next 8-week session of the course I offer through contextual scouting that helps you improve your odds of getting a job in basketball by learning how to solve basketball problems using various tools, building a portfolio of work, and kind of gaining experience with Synergy Sports Technology starts January 7th. Registration is open for that and for the subsequent session that starts March 3rd. Also, I just want to give pub to the Kawhi Leonard laugh as the NBA theme song. It's already gotten a lot of attention, but as we were preparing for this podcast, it made me giggle so much that I have to pub it.
I may play us out with it. You never know.
Yes.
We are approaching draft season. I know it's early for a lot of you. If you're listening to the podcast, you live in draft season. But we are getting ready to go into our first iteration of the newest version of the Draft Guide. A lot of details are going to be following in the next couple of weeks. This is a super exciting project. We've added all kinds of talented people. We can't wait to roll them out for you all to see. We're going to be doing some awesome stuff. We have had meetings on meetings, and I think it's all going to pay off. So cannot wait for that. We will have more details to come. The release is looking like right now we want to hit the middle of January with that first release. And so there are going to be exciting details for that. So just make sure you're following us on Twitter at Red Team Scouting. That's where you can get all your information. And when these big reveals start happening, you will know it because the earth will shake. It will change the landscape of the NBA draft, to put it mildly, I think. So anyway, Josh, thanks for joining me, man. Thanks for being the lone wolf out here, helping me discuss the really, truly important issues.
Well, I appreciate the verbal pick and roll and the give and go that we got to run today. And, I thought it was a very fun topic. And I'm sure we will continue to discuss this very topic later, just because that's who we are.
Absolutely. We went 48 minutes, give or take, way longer than what we targeted for. We never hit the target. We thought this was going to be 17 minutes. So anyway, if you've made it to the end, thank you so much for listening. For the Red Team Draft Podcast, for Josh Earl, I'm Alex West. We will see you next week.